Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's late afternoon, last day of the session, but I want to extend a very warm welcome to each one of you. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us today. So my name is Hopeful Owiti. I've been with Citrix for going on 18 years now. And through this time, I've been mainly in the engineering and services organization. So I wanted to really share with you a couple of key things that we're doing on service delivery. And I'm co-presenting with Clayton today. Actually, Clayton, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, my name is Clayton Petty, and I'm the Senior Director of Cloud Security.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so I wanted to start a little bit by just setting context in terms of the transformation we've been going through. As you can imagine, 18 years at Citrix, I've seen every single mode of transformation that the company has gone through. But the cloud transformation one for me has been fairly unique. And it's not just how we organized ourselves internally, to really make sure that we are moving towards the cloud, but a big part of it is how our customers moved with us towards this transformation. So it really stood out in terms of how we are thinking about cloud delivery, but a special point of it is just the lessons learned that came from all of you as we walked through this journey. So what Clayton and I would like to talk to you about today is really just paint a picture of how we are evolving service delivery to really engage with you. We'll kind of talk a little bit about some of the lessons learned through this journey with our customers, talk a little bit about how we are evolving our service delivery to really serve you better. And then we'll really talk about a new trust model that we are rolling out. This is a model that's based on how we are measuring performance, availability, compliance, and security. So we'll walk you through our thought process around that, and then just give you an idea of things that we have in store in the future for service delivery. So really excited to be sharing this part of the presentation for you. We are almost in the midpoint of 2019. It's been an incredible first half of the year so far. But I wanted to step back and just give you an idea of what the foundation that we laid out in 2018 that's leading us to this broader change. So 2018 was a transformational year for the company. It was the year where we went full in the cloud, had phenomenal success throughout the year in terms of usage, in terms of environments coming into the cloud environment, in terms of the microservices that we build, and really the chain and working with the cloud vendors to bring best-in-class service delivery for our customers. So we went through a lot of lessons learned. As you can imagine, it wasn't necessarily pain-free. And part of it was just really the engagement we had with our customers. So throughout this process, as we embarked on this journey with our customers, there's a lot of feedback that we got directly from our customers. Whenever we do updates in the cloud, how could we have consistent performance? How could we think about service reliability so that you really continue doing the productivity work that you're focused on and not really worry about all the other stuff that come through? How should we think about compliance and security? And for us, it really boiled down to two main things. It really boiled down to trust, which was a very big one, and service resiliency. So we really thought about the process, like how do we morph what we do in the company to really address how we are moving with our customers along this journey. So first of all, really wanted to thank our customer base for the patience, for the feedback that we got throughout the years. But this really set a foundation for us to really think about service delivery in a different way. So there are a couple of things that we really focused on. First of all was, what are the key pillars that we need to think through aggressively in really addressing the trust and resiliency aspects for our customers? And it boiled down to four main themes for us. A very closer look at performance, a very closer look at availability. We wanted to make sure that our SLAs are aligned with our customer expectations. We wanted to take the time and really address compliance requirements as well as really focus on security. I mean, security has been like such a big deal. It was one of the biggest barriers as our customers were moving to the cloud. So we realized that as our customers really trust us to manage their environments, there's a very big focus on security that really they need to really think through. So we put a specific foundation and framework to really help address this going forward. Really starting from what we started, we took in 2018, took all the lessons learned, took all your feedback, and now we are just on the next evolution of our journey. Now, as a result of this model, we decided to make a couple of key changes that I just wanted to highlight. The first one is that we thought differently about the team that delivers and the team that really manages this environment for our customer base. And we went through and really looked at what are the key pillars that we really needed to align to really make sure that we are doing this not just right, but really building it as part of our process overall. So we introduced, we had a team that was focused on site reliability. We built that team up. We introduced service delivery as part of the core function to really address service delivery in the cloud. So we really looking at that trust model. And more importantly, we really look at the expertise that we needed to really enhance this. So we built some key functions, really looking at very specific cloud architectures, looking at very common controls for cloud, and just really building expertise around those key elements. And one of the things that we are doing, especially this year, we've really started building a big security operation. We want to operate 24/7 on these security aspects. So we're building a fairly sustainable security team that will really be focused on managing your environments and just building on that trust and never sleeping, just to really make sure that as we go through this journey, your environments remain secure. These are the expectations that our customers have told us. These are the expectations that we are going through in terms of service delivery. So this was one of the key things that we rolled out this year, thinking about the team, thinking about how we do it differently. And then the second thing that we really looked at is the process of service delivery. So we kind of took a step back and said, like, how do we focus on resiliency as part of the process going in? So we kind of took a step back, really built a process around measuring performance, availability, and analyzing compliance, and really focus on security aspects as part of the process before these services come out to production for our customers. So we built some gating processes. We built some process to really look at a lot of this in granular detail to make sure that as we go through the process, by the time a service reaches to you, we've just gone through incredible due diligence across the stack to make sure that it's really meeting the expectations that you have of us. So it's been an exciting journey. So this is really the next evolution of where we are heading at. Is a framework that we've started working on across the company. And one additional thing that was really a big focus for us is to really understand the key use cases of our customers. We spent a lot of time really looking across those microservices that we have and trying to understand what are the key use cases we are really trying to drive for our customers. And we went through a tiering process. We wanted to make sure that depending on some of the use cases, we are a little bit more aggressive in swarm efforts. We wanted to make sure that as we go through this journey, there are just some key elements that cannot afford any level of downtime. That really helps us with priorities and things of that nature. And at the end of the day, really our biggest focus was to think through the key pillars that we shared earlier during the event. Looking at the experience for your users, we wanted to really look at security holistically, end-to-end, not just what we control, but elements that we don't control as well. So we are putting processes in place just to really make sure that we address that end-to-end. And we know there's flexibility of choice. This is something that we didn't want to limit our customers with. So even as we come through the cloud, our cloud infrastructure and understand the infrastructure that our customers leverage, we wanted to make sure that we have that flexibility of choice. And this really drove the framework for us thinking through how we take it to the next level and really just have more prescriptive service delivery for our customers. So really excited about the framework we've laid out and the journey that we continue to jointly go through as we head into 2019, the second half of 2019 and beyond. So with that, I'd like to bring up Clayton, walk you a little bit about some of those key pillars that we mentioned, some examples that we are thinking through, and then we'll take it from there. Clayton, take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Opal. So I'm going to walk through our customer trust model, really concentrating on our 4 pillars: performance, availability, compliance, and security, and give some examples of what we're doing in those areas. Looking at performance, one of the things that we're always looking for is how to innovate and be more successful, especially using the cloud technologies. When I think of application execution, technologies such as Google Anthos come to mind, taking advantage of IoT devices and edge computing. You know, performance and security are not mutually exclusive. In fact, in many cases, by enhancing the security of our products, we're actually enhancing the performance as well, especially when you take a look at what the cloud is offering today. And really, that's all about modeling our real user behavior. You know, one of the things we found is that our typical user actually switches about 4 times a day between devices and networks, right? So it's not just a constant pattern of usage. It's something that's actually dynamic and evolving throughout that workday. So let's look at an example of how this comes to play with our team. You know, a typical application might get deployed out into the cloud, and you can imagine most applications have a rewrite component to them. So, you know, when we look at modeling it, it seems pretty obvious that, okay, great, I'm going to have read-write components and it goes to an API, pretty simple. But by applying analytics and looking at that real user behavior, for example, in this particular use case, we noticed that, you know, actually the write only happens about once. And then many reads are from that one write. So if you think about a user who's switching devices and networks all the time, how can we take this to our advantage? Well, one thing is that we can set up multiple read endpoints out in the cloud. This gives not only availability, but it also allows us to enhance performance. So let's look at how that really, you know, lays out in a concrete example. If you look at the browser, this is an example using Browser Scope where I'm actually testing the actual capabilities of my browser. And I really want to highlight here that this is Chrome on Windows. And what this test told me is that I actually have 6 connections per host name, but 41 max connections. Well, what does that mean? Well, on a given host name, let's say it's you know, host.cloud.com, I only can have 6 parallel connections. But you see, the browser's capable of 41. How could I harness the power of 41? Well, it turns out that setting up multiple read endpoints is pretty straightforward. If they were read-write, that's a much more difficult problem, you know, in technology to solve. But multiple read, fairly easy. Well, taking advantage of that dynamically, I can now set up, for example, 9 reads in parallel very easily. Again, taking advantage of that 41 that's capable on the device. Most browsers are capable of around 6, but some, especially on mobile devices, can go much, much higher, and we want to take advantage of that. Let's look at availability. One of the things we value more than anything is being always available. And that's a really important message that I want everyone to really understand. You can talk about, you know, having you know, disaster recovery, for example, or high availability, but ultimately what you really want is to be always on. Now, when I think about the RTO and RPO, and that's recovery time objectives or recovery point objective, one of the challenges that we have is by taking kind of the always available methodology, in many cases, our recovery time, if something were to go wrong, is measured maybe in milliseconds, maybe at the max in just a few minutes. But that can be very challenging to have to kind of relay that message, you know, back to our customers. But the one thing we're always working on is how do we improve it and how do we reduce those times, again, taking that always available methodology. And of course, increasing the geo endpoints. More endpoints means that we're getting our data, your data, the customer's data to their devices faster. And that's a real big part of availability as well. Because if something does go wrong with one endpoint, you still want something that's close to still provide great performance. So let's look at an example of how we deal with this every day. So our typical target SLA, you know, externally that we publish is 99.5%. But the reality is, internally, we have to actually target something much, much higher. And let me show you why. Let's say I deploy a service A out to the cloud. And let's say, like many cloud components, our services are built on components, and maybe the component has a 99.9% availability. That's pretty good. And it connects through a dependency to another service B that's again deployed on a similar service, 99.9%. Well, at first blush, that looks pretty good, right? 99.9, 99.9, target of 99.5, we're okay, right? But you have to remember that this dependency chain is the probability that both are up at exactly the same time, right? That ends up to be 99.8%. By looking at that chain, great, 99.8, but hey, we're still okay. 99.5 was our target, we're still doing pretty good. But we also offer choice to customers. And that involves potentially being on multiple clouds at the same time. So let's look at that scenario. Again, Cloud A, Service A, we know that to be 99.9% with an SLA. But let's take a look at Cloud B and Service B. Well, that's a different kind of component that we had to build on. And unfortunately, it didn't quite offer the same SLA, only a 99.5%. Well, the probability that they're both up and running at the same time, it's only a 99.4. That's not good enough. It doesn't meet our criteria. Now, we can solve this problem, and of course, by doing so, what we're going to do is we're going to build out more services on Cloud B. So, for example, let's say we have B1 and B2. They both are, again, 99.5%, the same as before. But I only need one of these to run at any given time. So one could be out, one could service all the requests. We're still meeting our objective. Now, if we do this, then we're at a 99.65%. Great, that's fantastic. So again, we're back in our target range. But you see, the reality is it's not this simple. And easy to see is, how did I get those two services? There's got to be something in there that I had to put in order to be able to switch between the two of them if one went down. Well, what's that look like? So let's say we choose something very simple, like just a simple load balancer. Most load balancers in the cloud offer about a 99.99%. That sounds pretty good. If we do the probability that both service A and the load balancer and the service B all are up and running, is a 99.64. When you actually look at the math and when you look at things like SLAs, what you realize is that even with services with what seems to be a really high SLA is a necessity, because when I actually chain these together, my overall probability that everything works in tandem keeps going down. And this is, again, one of the reasons why in our architecture group, we've spent a lot of focus on microservice and really ensuring that we have highly reliable services that have a single use case, because it's easier, of course, to get that SLA up higher, because when we chain them together, it's a necessity in order to be successful. Let's talk a little bit about compliance. One of the things that our team does a lot is reduce the internal friction for, let's say, the product teams to achieve compliance. We know that if we write tools that people actually want to use, then it's less likely they'll come up with their own methodologies or try their own ways of doing things. Compliance is a lot about standardization. But one of the things we do in our group is we actively participate. We're actively participating by not only looking at the compliance and thinking about, well, our once-a-year task that we might have to do, but how do I turn that into a year-round task? How can I be actively making sure that we're always in compliance at all times? But it's not really talking about that, not stopping at what the compliance tells us to do, but really looking at how our organization can be a world-class organization and how we can actually set our own standards that are well above what the compliance needs may be. And that's really important because, again, one of the things I think about in the supply chain is not just in terms of where other vendors might fit with us, but I truly do understand that we are part of our customer supply chain. They are relying on us to do the right thing, and that's really important to me. I just wanted to give kind of an example a little bit more and how one of the phrases we use a lot on the team is compliance is more than a checkbox. And this is really important for us. Again, looking at our security operations center, and really employing security Citrix threat experts. People who are actively hunting for threats. Might be threats from IP addresses, from known bad actors. It might be looking for files, phishing attempts, password spraying. All of those things we're looking at all the time. Our incident response and recovery. Again, truly understanding where we may have something that needs to be investigated. And of course, if we do need a response, having the team ready to go. Event management. This is one of the critical pieces of understanding that there's a lot of data coming in. It's critical for us to get that data truly to understand where it's coming from, what does it mean, and again, get an investigation going if need be. Vulnerability management. It's really important, again, to understand what's going on in the environment at all times and actively addressing that, reporting on that, and so on and so forth. And of course, automation. One of the key things I have on the team for everyone who's involved in the security operations is they have to be a developer. They have to have that development experience. Automation is the only way that we can move forward and move quickly. And so having everyone as a developer, even if it's a scenario where they might be a low-code developer, for example, taking advantage of some of the new low-code technologies that are out there, automated workflows, app builders, right? That kind of technology, right? Those are low-code, but they're high value. Looking at information protection, obviously threat detection is paramount. The governance, understanding where data needs to be, ensuring that it's in the location that we said it was in at all times. Encryption and masking. A lot of compliance involves data encryption, right? It's very common, you see it all the time. But really, masking is a huge part of our strategy to take it beyond that standard compliance line item, because masking for me is all about having least privileged use, right? I might have somebody who, yes, they're authorized to look at the data, but they don't have to see all of that data, right? Customer data is so important, including the metadata. And that if I can mask that so they can't see that, it just enhances our security profile all the more. And that's a really big investment that we're making. Identity and access. One of the things we're introducing is the enhanced security administrative environment. And really, this is a very strict control plane that allows our users to have completely separate identities for managing the customer cloud. Multi-factor authentication, taking advantage of newer technologies. One of the things we've been using, for example, is YubiKeys. And I don't know if you're familiar with YubiKeys, but it's a hardware key that can be used. So it's to prevent like phishing, for example, or app-based multi-factor authentication apps, or text messages, right? Everyone's probably had at least one instance where they get like the 6-digit code, for example, on your text message. But the reality is, do you know where you're typing in that 6-digit code? Do you trust the app that's asking for that information, right? Hardware keys bypasses that completely. Conditional access policies, or just-in-time access, really all about one thing, and that is if a user has the ability to get into let's say a machine, let's say they're doing an administrative function, it goes beyond that. I want to make sure that they are in the right network, maybe they're in the right geo. For example, they're on the right device, right? All of those are really important. And if I open up something that allows them to access, I close it immediately right after they're done. I just don't leave it open, even though that might be something they do in their daily job. And one big thing we're rolling out is the idea of privileged access workstations, dedicated hardware, dedicated virtualized environments that are strictly controlled so that our users, when they do administrative functions, don't have to worry about things like phishing, because there is no email. They don't have to worry about malicious websites because they don't have access to those websites, right? That's really important. Overall, looking at the hybrid cloud infrastructure, one of the big things is the client secure score. And you saw one of the announcements about contributing to the intelligent security graph, right? That provides a score. So now we're getting data both from Citrix services as well as, for example, Microsoft in that intelligent graph. And of course, the DDoS attack mitigation and monitoring. So lastly, to touch on security, really the foundations of this are built on a zero trust depth and defense model. Zero trust literally means trust nothing. And I do joke a lot of times that I say I don't even trust myself, and that's really important. Depth in defense is really all about having multiple layers of security. It's not enough just to protect the edge. It's not enough to protect the perimeter, or it's not enough just to protect your database. It's protecting all of the data, all of the applications, all of the users, all of the devices, all the time. And again, secure by design. One of our core tenets is to get in early on the process, right? If someone's sitting and has an idea for a new product, I want to be there right away because I want to make sure that every step that they're taking has security in mind. And of course, this leads to the whole life cycle approach. It's not enough just to do it once, but it's continuously monitoring and analyzing yourself to make sure that you're doing the right thing. It's being innovative, looking at what's in the market. It's looking at new technologies and really looking at how you can apply them in your everyday. So some of our key investment areas in 2019 around security is around these three topics. Incident management. We're going to be having some significant growth in our worldwide operations for our CSOC. We're going to be investing very heavily in automation. Automation allows us to basically go through, let's say, threat intelligence very quickly, threat analysis. Looking at our event management and really understanding that full life cycle. It's all about how does some piece of data that comes in, if it gets investigated, if it gets turned into an incident, and how did it get remediated? We have to understand that. It's very critical to understand how quickly that happens and then learn from those incidents that happen. Artificial intelligence. Now, I know this is a big buzzword and you see it quite a bit, but the reality is when you look at how much data is coming in and you're trying to look for anomalies, for example, we absolutely need things like artificial intelligence, machine learning to help us do that. Humans are very good at finding patterns, but the reality is I've got so much data, I couldn't hire enough people in the world to look through it all. But you see, computers can, and they do it quite easily. And ultimately, like I talked about with the data masking, protecting our customer data is paramount. In vulnerability management, we really are on a mission to implement the best cloud-native tools on the market. And really goes beyond just implementing the tools. We have a standard that with every vendor, every tool we use, we have that engineering relationship, that engineering to engineering relationship, because it's not just about consuming the tool, it's about understanding the best practices, how other people are using it, and then contributing directly to other teams of our learnings and our findings. And of course, our learnings go directly to what I call Citrix on Citrix. We do use our own tools for ourselves, of course. And we see this manifested in workspace, and the analytics for security, and the access control. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Hopeful on the Trust Center updates.
All right, thanks, Clayton. Good stuff. Just curious, how many customers are familiar with the Trust Center? Gone there, understand it, know what's in there? All right, not anyone quite yet. So the Trust Center is actually a public site. So this is where you can go to really learn more about the security aspects, compliance aspects of Citrix Cloud, and some of the things that we are doing through around SLAs and security. So it contains a few key elements. You can get security documents. You can go through, get some agreements, understand a little bit about privacy and compliance, as well as some specific product documentation that walks you through how Citrix Cloud operates kind of behind the scene. So it's an environment that's kind of publicly available right now. You can get more details. If you can just type your browser, Citrix Trust Center, it'll be the first hit that you get. So one of the key things is that we really wanted to morph this site. And it's really about just giving you a way to understand a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes and being a little bit transparent in a lot of key areas. This is one area where a partnership with our customers and our partners becomes critical. And one of the areas where Clayton and I really want to hear from you as well. Like what what information would you really like to see that really helps you to kind of govern and go through your own processes. So there are a few things to expect, as we look at building this and more into the Trust Center. So we want to incorporate more details on resiliency aspects, the kind of behind the scenes. Just really give you a really good idea of how we are managing resiliency across the board. So this is some of the information you'll be able to get there. We are looking to be a little bit more transparent with RCAs. It's been one of those key things where really customers want to get a clearer understanding every time there's a cloud outages, whether or not it's something in our control. So we want to be more transparent, give you an idea of some of the key areas that you can look forward to. And then, Clayton went through how we are calculating some SLAs and really managing the dependency chain. So we want to be to give you more information and more tools to really help you manage this across the board. So stay tuned for more updates in the Trust Center. This is it'll be a one-stop shop to really understand a lot of the details around those 4 pillars of the trust model that are more customer-facing, that can really help you as you operationalize your portions of the environment as well. So really looking forward to that. And then one thing that I wanted to share with you is how we are morphing the communication. So whenever we have any incidences within our environment, we post specific messages that customers can subscribe to. These are available in status.cloud.com. So it's a site where customers go to subscribe and get information. Whenever there's an incident, we report it there, give you an idea of if there's an outage or issue in one of the geos location and how it really affects you. The messages that we have at this point, they're a little bit canned. I mean, it gives you some details, but it's not to the level that we'd really like to get through. So one thing that we are doing is building more granular aspects into that message. So help you really understand at a component level what's being impacted in our cloud environment, where we are seeing performance issues, where we are seeing challenges with availability, and really just gives you an idea to help you action some key elements. And then one of the key goals that we have is to really contextualize the health report for our customers, give you an end-to-end view of the health of your environment. So this is one of the key areas where we are really partnering across the company to be able to give you that visibility in terms of how your environment is operating in the cloud, both pieces that you control and manage, as well as the key pieces that we control on the back end. So stay tuned for more communication. One of the key things is that the team that we run under Unified Cloud Engineering is really one of the customer-facing teams for all of engineering. So the input that you give us will be critical as we get more details around how we operationalize these environments. Yeah, and just wanted to bring this up just to wrap it up. It's a framework that has been critical for us to roll out, and it's really about building and maintaining your trust as you continue through this journey with us. It's a journey that I'm really excited about. On behalf of Citrix, wanted to really thank all of you for being part of that journey, and we really look forward for much more of this as we continue just really enhancing the cloud environments for you. So wanted to wrap it there. I believe we'll have a few minutes for Q&A. Have a couple of closing slides that are generic. So before you leave, please complete the surveys. It really gives us feedback to improve the event overall. So we'd really appreciate your surveys. You can be able to watch a lot of these sessions, starting this week. So a lot of these will be posted on Synergy TV, as well as the availability of the presentations. And finally, just give us feedback on this session as well. We want to know what information you're looking for, what else deep dives would really help you. So any feedback that you can give us specifically on this session will be truly appreciated. This is something that you can do from your app, and just give us any open feedback that we can use to really improve going forward. And that really wraps it up for us, for Clinton and I today. I wanted to really thank you for making the time, spending a part of your afternoon with us. We have some time for some questions, so feel free, anyone wants to come through. Clayton and I will also be out there for a few minutes. If you have any questions or want to talk one-on-one, more than happy to do so.
Great, thank you.